warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. Bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of
the latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Nick Arkell. The M180 westbound is blocked by emergency tree cutting, junction 4 through to junction 3. A big diversion via the A18, so there are queues through the area. The M11 northbound is affected through Cambridgeshire by a broken down vehicle at junction 11. It's partially blocking the exit Slit Road, slowing things down. And going the other way on the M11 southbound side through Essex, junction 9 through to junction 8, one lane is closed by a collision. The queue is there from junction 10 onwards. Anti-clockwise M25, it's stopped by an obstruction that needs to be moved near junction 10. The queue's from 12, and QE2 bridge is delayed. It's backing up because there was a broken down car there earlier on. The M40 northbound is very busy, long delays where there were emergency repairs at junction 1A. The M5 northbound busy where there was a broken down vehicle. Queues junction 28 to 27.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show we've got Chloe Dobbs, who's a political commentator. We've also got Bill Rammell, he's a former Labour minister. We're going back in the day with former Gladiator star Warren Furman, and last orders with Hollyoaks star Paul Danan. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening. Your top stories at 7 o'clock. The Prime Minister has said the world should be cautious about what comes next in Syria. Speaking during a virtual meeting of the G7, Sir Keir Starmer told allies, while welcoming the Syrian regime's collapse, a new government should be credible and inclusive for all Syrians. The widow of former England rugby player Tom Voice says she's overwhelmed by the support she's received since he went missing. His wife, Anna, said she is absolutely devastated and heartbroken, but that doesn't describe exactly how it feels. The 43-year-old's body was recovered yesterday and his identity confirmed after a 5-day search of the River Anne. The player's car was swept away while trying to cross Aberwick Ford in Northumberland during Storm Dora. A wicked predator who was caught on CCTV raping and killing an NHS worker has been jailed for life. Mohammed Lidow attacked mother of 3, Natalie shot her while she was passed out in Southall Park, West London. After an Old Bailey trial, Lidow was found guilty of her rape and manslaughter. Richard Marks KC sentenced Lidow to life with a minimum term of 10 years and 8 months. The government has unveiled a clean power action plan to decarbonise the electricity grid by 2030. Number 10 claims the move will protect households from any future energy spikes, boost growth and tackle the climate crisis. Meanwhile, some government-backed researchers have warned Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, Ed Miliband's plans could actually increase energy bills. Well, earlier GB News spoke to Energy Minister Michael Shanks.
Yes, reforming the planning system to make sure we build things faster than we are at the moment is important, but we're not removing the right of communities to have a voice in that process. What we're saying is at the moment the planning process is often just drown in paperwork for years and years, which doesn't help communities but also doesn't get really essential infrastructure built.
And your last one for now, the UK economy shrank for the second month in a row in October as concerns about the budget continue to weigh on confidence. The Office for National Statistics said output fell 0.1% following the 0.1% decline recorded for the previous month. The figures showed zero growth in the powerhouse services sector, with manufacturing and construction declining at a pace of 0.6% and 0.4% respectively. The ONS says activity had stalled or declined, with pubs, restaurants and retail among sectors reporting weak months. Chancellor Rachel Reeves said she was disappointed by the data. That's your final story for now. Let's get you back to Lee Anderson.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield, and tonight on the show he's back. He's the Stephen Pound lookalike. That's Bill Rammell, former Labour Member of Parliament. Sorry about that, Bill. Sorry about that. And political commentator Chloe Dobbs. Straight to it, guys. Look, we've seen over the past few weeks some decisions in government where government's been cutting things like the winter fuel payment, and then we see senior Labour ministers, i.e. the DWP secretary, is claiming fuel allowance for the constituency home back in Leicestershire. It rubs people up the wrong way, Bill, don't you, when it sees that greedy MPs like me on a good salary and other sides, and they're claiming heating allowances for their, their second home, if you like. Is it wrong to claim that heating allowance when you're on so much money?
No, it's not wrong, Lee. I recall your colleague, Anne Widdecombe, in 2009 making an impassioned speech in the House of Commons where she urged MPs to get up off their knees and defend the second home allowance, because without it, the only people who could afford to be MPs would be the rich. By the very nature of your job as an MP, you've got a home in your constituency, you're required 3 or 4 nights a week to be at Westminster, often to the early hours of the morning. You need 2 homes, and that has to be funded.
Chloe, what do you think?
So I don't think that you should scrap the ability of MPs to claim their expenses for having to then live in 2 homes rather than 1 home when they then become an MP. However, there are some people who are absolutely taking the mix. So as you mentioned, Liz Kendall, Secretary of State for Department for Work and Pensions, she, as I presume, had played a significant role in scrapping that winter fuel allowance. And it really feels like the Labour Party is completely out of touch with how this is affecting pensioners who are really being plunged into poverty, choosing between heating and eating, when she has a £4 million Notting Hill house, a combined salary with her husband of 750k, and then she says, I need the taxpayer to pick up the bill for my heating in my constituency home. They have the option there, but they do not need to take it. Plenty of MPs will not be expensing that. I think it was great that Reform MP Rupert Lowe, he said, I'm going to give my salary to charity.
He does.
And into the constituency, because he doesn't need it. I feel like just day by day, week by week, the stories just keep on building up, showing that Labour are completely out of touch.
That's a point, though, Bill, surely. If you have a household income of over 700 grand, should you really be claiming from the state, from the taxpayer, 300 quid or whatever it is for your heating bill?
Well, you've just quoted Rupert Lowe as a multi-millionaire, and yes, he doesn't claim the allowances. The vast majority of MPs, this isn't a party issue. You look at the published record, the vast majority of MPs of all parties claim the allowance, and they do it because by the very nature of their job, they require 2 homes. And if you didn't have the allowance, Lee, you and I are from similar backgrounds. Without the second home allowance, neither of us could have afforded to be members of Parliament. That's the blunt reality. Now, in terms of the winter fuel allowance...
Should it be means tested then, Bill?
No, because you've got...
Which is what they've done with the winter fuel allowance. They've means tested that, i.e. if you're on pension credit, you get it. Should it be a similar thing for members of Parliament?
No, because this
if you're on ridiculous amounts of money.
Entitlement that is set independently to enable MPs to have 2 homes. That requires costs. In terms of the winter fuel allowance, there's always been a case for means testing it. That's why the Tories had it in their manifesto in 2017. It's why they're not committed to repealing means testing. However, I think the threshold is too low, and I think the government needs to look at that.
Chloe, back to you.
I mean, I don't think that there is no case whatsoever for means testing the winter fuel payment. But I mean, as Bill, I slightly agree with you here in that I think the threshold is way too low. It's what, like, they claim if you're have over 11 grand coming in a year, which is, absolutely pennies, as a pensioner, that you must be, absolutely raking it in. You've got plenty of money to buy your food and pay for your bills. It's simply not the case. And it just feels like with the winter fuel payment cut, with the tax on farmers as well, they've just said, we've got a report saying only a few people are affected, so stop moaning, you lot, and we'll keep on taking our freebies and our expenses. They made it out before the election. We are the party of change. We are the party that are in touch with the people. We don't want any more of this cronyism and these elites that are out of touch with working people. And they've just shown themselves to be exactly the same as the last lot as soon as they've come into power.
Just out of touch, I think Chloe's trying to say, Bill.
You look at the budget, 22 billion extra for the National Health Service.
There's your black hole.
Triple the rate of inflation for the minimum wage for the poorest people in the country. These are the priorities for change that people voted for. I acknowledge it is rocky when you're trying to clear up the mess we inherited in the early months in government. But I think we've set the direction. Keir Starmer was talking yesterday about the priorities for change and how Labour's going to drive those forward. And the country needs that. It needs a narrative to...
You see, I get the case, Bill. I do get the case for some MPs having that assistance. It's their second home, it's their only income. But surely when you've got an income of 700 grand, you're living in a £4 million mansion in Notting Hill. Oh, and by the way, the house you claim for in Leicestershire, where your seat is It's not your proper home, really. It's just somewhere where you rest your head, where you can be bothered to turn up and do some work in your own constituency. Because that's not the family home. That's the constituency home.
Look, unlike when I was first an MP, all expense claims are published and every member of Parliament is going to have to answer for that and to be accountable. But if you look at the public record of the expenses that are claimed across the parties, there are MPs, the vast majority of them, who claim the second home allowance because you need it to run 2 homes. Without the second home allowance, you would stop ordinary people from becoming MPs. And I don't think that's right. We don't want a Parliament just stuffed full of the wealth.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I get quite a bit of stick online and people say, look at Lee Anderson, his expenses is £200,000 per year. But what these, I'll call them idiots because they are idiots, they're not checking, they're idiots. What they don't realise is that £200,000 is, I've got 6 members of staff. I have to pay their wages, their NI. I have to pay for an office in Ashfield. I have to pay the rent on that, the heating bills, the phone bills, the internet, printing cartridges, all that sort of stuff comes out. The only actual expenses I get is my accommodation in London. And by the way, I stay in a hotel. I tried a flat when I first got elected, and the flat works out at about 10 grand a year more than stopping in a hotel because you're only here, like say, Bill, 3 or 4 days a week for about 30 odd weeks. The rest of your time, you're on recess. So the reason I stop in a hotel is because it's cheaper. It saves the taxpayer 10 grand, plus I don't have to wash my towels.
But you're absolutely right, Lee. But I think the other point that comes out of this, and it really does concern me, in my experience, the vast majority of MPs of all parties are not in politics for money.
No.
I mean, I've earned much more money after Parliament than I did whenever I was there. Most MPs of all parties are there for the right reasons. And when we get these stories that try to claim they're just in it for the money, it's a million miles from the truth.
No, I do get that. It's just, I think it rubs people the wrong way, the optics of it all. When people are on, because there are some wealthy MPs there. I mean, there's some of the MPs I work with in the Conservative Party, they've got more money than God. They really have.
The optics are just terrible, and I don't know who is running Labour's PR team, but I think they should probably fire them because they seem to be getting them into trouble and all sorts of scandals.
Which is pretty good, Keir, is it? Counting down a Christmas tree.
Oh gosh, I mean that was embarrassing. But I mean, for example, we've had so many scandals. The Lord Ali scandal, we had the 20 grand for the son's supposed GCSE accommodation, and he goes on an interview and he says, oh, every other parent would have done the same. No, every other parent doesn't have 20 grand to just put their son up in a nice, quiet place to study. They are showing that they're completely out of touch. Bill, nobody is suggesting, or at least I'm not, that MPs who genuinely need the money for their set to have 2 homes, who genuinely need the money, as Lee has pointed out, for obvious things like having your staff, having your constituency office and whatnot. No one's saying that we should scrap that. It's the ones who take the mick, like Liz Kendall, having a big, fancy, huge house.
It's come back to me. I've had a flashback. I tell you who this idiot was who said I'd claimed £200,000 expense. Benjamin Butterworth, he's on GB News a bit. It was him. He was actually on a few weeks back saying this very thing. But they don't dig down, Bill. They don't look at what these expenses are. No. By the way, Benjamin Butterworth's not here to defend himself, but I'll have him back on here to try and defend himself.
Yeah, the vast bulk of the expenses that an MP claims are for running their office. It's staff costs, it's office costs, heating, lighting and printing and the rest of it. That's what you need to function as an MP.
Maybe there's a case then, Clay, for these expenses not to be published, or for them to be published in a different way, which says these are office costs. Right there in front of me, instead of this headline figure of £200,000 or whatever it is, it looks like I'm pocketing the money.
I mean, that does sound like a big figure on the face of it. Obviously, it needs to be broken down. I mean, admittedly, I don't go and sit and go through the accounts, to be honest. So I'm not sure exactly how they are displayed, but obviously it needs to be explained. I wouldn't agree with not publishing what the expenses are, because I think then you just open up to yourself up to more accusations and more dodgy things going on. MPs need to be held accountable for those things. I think one last point I would make is that when you've got MPs who are, say, claiming these allowances for, you can have up to sort of 20 grand for 3 extra for your accommodation costs, and Liz Kendall with heating and whatnot, is at least show if you're having to make difficult decisions with
Yeah.
your budget, if you genuinely think those are necessary conditions to fund the NHS and whatnot, as Bill has spoken about, at least show a little bit of sympathy for the people who are being affected. At least show some sympathy for the pensioners who are going to really, really struggle this winter as a consequence. At least show some sympathy to the farmers for what you're putting them through. I mean, you asked a question in Parliament to Angela Rayner when she was doing PMQs the day after the farmers' protest, and she just said, oh yeah, of course we're helping our farmers. We always help them and we always will. She didn't even acknowledge the difficulties that they're going through. They acted as if the protest didn't even...
It does seem a lack of compassion, Bill, from a Labour Party.
No. I mean, for farmers who need it, there's all the compassion in the world. But inheritance tax breaks for farmers. 54% of the people who were claiming it were not farmers. They were very, very wealthy people.
Then go for them, not the farmers.
Well, you've got to treat people equally. And they still get
No, I would say fairly, Bill.
They still get an incredibly good deal. You know, $3 million you can pass on without a penny of inheritance tax, then a 50% reduction on the tax you have to pay and 10 years to pay it. You know, as the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies has said, that's a damn good deal.
It's a good deal.
Absolutely not. Now, obviously, they are trying to close down a loophole where there are wealthy people who have brought a load of agricultural land, right? And so, understandable, you want to close down that loophole. But for people who are actual farmers, just amend the policy. As Jeremy Clarkson said, do the big thing and admit that you rushed into this policy, you made a mistake, and you need to amend it to make sure people who are actual farmers, who, by the way, do not get rich selling potatoes and cabbages, Bill, it needs to be changed.
Guys, we'll have to wrap it up there. We've got to go. That's the time's up, guys. Great debate. Coming up next, we've got Back in the Day with former Gladiator Warren Furman.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As Strictly Come Dancing approaches its iconic Blackpool episode, marking halfway through the competition, visually impaired dancers across the country have spoken out about how groundbreaking the casting of Chris McCausland is, who suffers from, if I hope I'm saying this correctly, retinitis pigmentosa, and they've found him particularly inspiring. We've been talking, Sean, about how the casting of Strictly has been inspiring to so many people, but I imagine there'll be lots of people who are watching this at home finding your story of resilience really inspiring, because you've obviously really been through it. Is dancing something that has sort of, you know, helped keep you going through all of those troubles? And what does it mean to you to see casting like this on a show like Strictly Come Dancing?
Like I say, all the things I went through. So those 9 years when I wasn't dancing, you know, I was still dancing in my head and just banging on to other people. Very much not just people with sight loss. You know, I've been a big advocate for people with social isolation. So many people on their own now, social anxiety, especially since COVID. And I just want people to get out. The stuff that I'm doing and all the stuff Chris is obviously doing, it will inspire others. Again, like I say, just not people just with sight loss. I had so many people come up to me in the early days, guys, and now that say, you know what, Shawnee, I've seen you do it, so I'm just going to do it. But you just got to get over yourself, because if you bother to do the maths, you know, because all it is maths and walking. Yeah. You know, that's all it is.
Maths and walking actually sounds quite difficult.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, come on, mate. Can you shout? Can you walk? Crack on.
Sean, you're an inspiration. Thank you, mate, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. You're a star, and so glad.
Just before I go, I'm just going to say this is Kev. Here's Kev.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. We're going back in the day with Warren Furman. Nice to meet you. Big star back in the 90s. We all used to watch Gladiators on a Saturday night, didn't we? In there, from Birmingham, some big characters. I used to like watching it, mate, to be honest. He was one of the main men. He's here on GB News on Lee Anderson's Real World. Mate, how did you get into becoming a gladiator?
You know, I was a big fan of the show.
Yeah.
So I'd watch it on a Saturday night and I used to think I'd love to get on that show. And like you say, there were some big stars like Wolf and Rhino and Warrior, and I just thought, I want to be like one of those guys, you know. And they were breaking into Hollywood at that time as well.
So you must have been training and doing stuff at that time to fancy your chances.
Yeah, I was. Well, initially I thought I'd go on as a contestant, but then I thought, no, because a contestant can win some money and go against a gladiator.
Yeah.
But if you can get the top job as a gladiator, you can sort of live happily ever after as a superstar.
Yeah.
So I was going to the gym, pumping iron and everything else to just try and put on this, you know, this muscle suit and be a superhero, really, and get on this massive show.
Yeah, but there must have been like a lot of adulation at that time from being just a normal bloke to winning that show, becoming a household name, and all these people wanting a piece of you.
Oh, yeah. It was a real rags to riches story, because actually when I got that show, I was officially homeless. I was living in the YMCA, and I had nothing in the bank, no money.
Wow.
And I put all my eggs in that basket of like, oh, if I'm a bodybuilder and I can get rich and famous, that will set me free, you know. So applying to that show and actually getting a call back was phenomenal in itself, but then actually landing the part as Ace and then calling me, you're now the leader of the pack and you're going to be famous overnight was just phenomenal.
Well, that's an incredible story, isn't it?
Yeah, I felt like I died and gone to heaven.
Well, you mentioned heaven there, and then, you know, sometime after, you've had that, whether it's a road to Damascus moment, I don't know, Warren, but you found God later on in life, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that no one had ever told me the gospel, Lee. You know, I'd put my faith in myself, my muscles, my possessions, my positions, and I just thought life was sort of about proving yourself. And I always thought if you're a good person and you died, you know, and there was a God, you'd go to heaven if you did more good than bad.
Yeah.
But that's not the message of the gospel at all. And I didn't know that Jesus was a real person. You know, we're coming up to Christmas, aren't we? And, you know, the birth of Christ. I'd no idea that you could be in a relationship with God, and Jesus makes that possible. Nobody had ever explained that to me. So it took till I was 42 years old till I actually heard the gospel. And I heard that, you know, Jesus is a gift from God, but he's no gift at all if you don't respond to it and receive that.
Yeah, but to find, I mean, I don't know, I've not got the religion. Sometimes I wished I had. I'm looking for a sign.
Yeah. Well, it's here, sat here now.
Well, that could be.
God's being proving to you.
It could be. It could well be. But it is a blind faith, isn't it? You've got to put your heart and soul into it and believe in something that you can't touch or see. Maybe you feel it.
I would say no. I would say no. And the reason I would say that is because people say, do you believe in God? I say, I don't believe, I know. I met the person of Jesus Christ through the power of the Holy Spirit. I went on what's called an Alpha course, where you ask the big questions of life. And I started getting these questions answered. And then I prayed and I felt the presence of God by the power of the Spirit. So, you know, when we talk about God, we talk about Father, Son and Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is what gets, you know, he gets things done on the earth now, moves like the wind. And so I didn't know you could experience this. I didn't know you could experience God, and I didn't know you could know him personally. So I like to say to people, Lee, I'm not actually religious.
Yeah.
You know, I think religious is man trying to find God, and like you say, a blind faith, hoping you can get to God. But God's already come to us through his son, Jesus Christ. And of course, this is the whole message of Christmas. You can know God personally. You can be in a relationship with God by accepting that, you know, that Jesus has come so that you can be in a relationship with God.
So now you're in this relationship with God. Does that make you a calmer person, you think, a better person, a more enlightened?
Oh, well, well, yes and no. So, you know, we're still in the flesh. You know, I used to just serve the flesh. I had no idea that we're supposed to be embodied spirits, that God's Spirit comes to live in us. So I still, you know, I sin, but the great thing about knowing God is that you can confess that sin and repent from it, and God's quick to forgive. He's a God of compassion, not condemnation. I didn't know any of this stuff, you see. So, yeah, I'm not a great person. But what I would like to say is that I came out of the rat race, you know, and I was winning the rat race. So as a gladiator, I was doing all right. But I came into God's grace. So I have a peace and a freedom and a joy that I never knew before. You know, that this is something that was completely alien to me, and I wasn't expecting that. I had happiness before, Lee, but that was temporary.
Yeah.
It was if good things were happening to me, I was happy, but I didn't know you could have a joy and a peace and a freedom. I was living under the curse of death. I didn't know that you could, you know, live.
But you've gone one further though, Warren, haven't you? You've become a vicar.
I never saw that coming.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest, when I first heard the gospel, I was a little bit angry with the church.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, if the church's mission is to share the gospel, the good news of Jesus, why has it taken 42 years for somebody to explain the gospel to me and to explain that I'm separated from God and that God's unconditional love and he needs to be invited in if you're...
So come on, in a nutshell, what is the gospel?
The gospel is the good news of Jesus Christ. That's the nutshell of it. But it's not good news to you if you don't examine the evidence of the person of Jesus Christ and get to the point where you invite him into your life. Like I say, God is unconditional love. So there has to be an invitation there. He will never force himself on you. So that's essentially the gospel. The kingdom of God is at hand. We can reduce life to building our own empires, but history shows us all empires crumble. The only thing that will remain is the kingdom of God. And that's what Jesus came to announce. And that's what Christmas is all about, the birth of the Saviour.
So what will you be doing, Warren, on Christmas Day?
Oh, Christmas for me is the most exciting time of the year. It never used to be. Before I was a Christian, I'll be honest, I used to just go and get at the pub.
Can we just bleep that out, please? More effing than blinded. It's only, it's not even gone 9
No,
o'clock.
but I didn't know you could be filled with the Holy Spirit. So I used to just get filled with alcoholic spirit because I just thought that's what Christmas was about, just switching this off, getting wasted and stuff. But actually these days I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, which is far, far more exciting than just switching this off, because God works in and through us. And so at Christmas, I'm at a church called St. Francis in Delgado Way, Ladbroke Grove in London. We do tons. So a lot of people think the church is a building. It's not. It's the body of Christ now, of which Jesus is ahead. So it's Christians blessing the community. So we've got a Christmas lunch. We've got hundreds of people coming to that on Christmas Day in the church. We've got lots of initiatives. We go out, we're delivering thousands of bags of hope into the community, just showing the love of God in word and deed. And that's the gospel. You can try and reduce the gospel to words, but actually it's deeds as well.
Did you ever think, though, Warren, when you was doing the Gladiators back in the 90s, when all beefed up, lobbing people about and giving them a bit of a dusting up, that you'd ever become a vicar?
Absolutely not. I thought Christianity was another religion. I thought it was almost like a crutch for crippled people that couldn't cope with life, so they needed something more. So I just put my faith in myself. So I was too busy breaking people down to prove myself. But these days, I'm building people up. I'm still a gladiator, but I'm a gladiator for the gospel. People say, Warren, are you still bodybuilding? And I say, well, I don't build my own body anymore. I build the body of Christ, the church. We're a great Christian nation. I think we moved away from that, but I think we're coming back to that. And you can see the Holy Spirit moving all over the place in this.
And do you ever fall out with God?
We have words every now and then. Yeah, we have words. Some things I don't understand. A lot of people think you come to faith and it'll all be roses and rainbows. It's not like that at all. But sometimes like a father disciplining his son, it can be tough because we all have battles, and if the grass looks greener next door, it's usually because it's AstroTurf. There are battles, but the great thing about knowing God is he gives resources and answers to these battles, and he makes sense of life. I think without God, life doesn't make a lot of sense at all, actually.
Well, you're certainly inspiring me to pick up the good book. Warren, that's been brilliant. Our time's up. Coming up next, we've got Right versus Left.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back, A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday. Some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Right versus Left, and joining me once again is Chloe Dobbs and the lovely, gorgeous Bill Rammell. Thanks for that, Bill. Look, just a few weeks back, or recently, Nigel Farage said that sport should be apolitical. This was on the back of, I think it was a Premier League footballer wearing a rainbow, I think it was a captain's armband, I think, and then he put I Love Jesus on the top as well. Is it time, Bill, to clamp down on this and keep sport apolitical?
Well, I don't think you can keep sport completely apolitical, and I'll come on to that. But I think in terms of Premier League footballers wearing political slogans on their sleeves, it's a nonsense. And you end up in, because it's not about conviction, it's not about collectively what the players want to do, it's about brand management by the football authorities. They think it's good for their image. And you end up in the absurdity of Mark Gahey, the Crystal Palace and England defender, being lambasted because he's put a pro-Jesus slogan on his armband. The two exceptions I would make is, so generally not to wearing political slogans, the two exceptions are, one, the fact that football authorities have cracked down on racism on the terraces has been a very good thing. I've been in football grounds, there's been some absolutely obscene chants. I think that's the right thing to do. Secondly, you know, the sporting ban against South Africa because of apartheid, I think was a good thing. And it came about because the South African authorities refused to have a black player in an England team touring South Africa. And that isolated South Africa and actually contributed towards the end of apartheid. So, you know, in terms of where you play and where tournaments are hosted, I don't think you can completely divorce sport from politics.
Over to you, darling.
I think that we really should try to keep politics out of sport. So we had this case where the players were all not forced to, but encouraged to wear rainbow pride armbands, which is ridiculous enough as it is, but then it all got complicated. One of them put I Love Jesus on their band and was told to take it off. Then you had a Muslim player was pardoned from wearing it because he said it was against his religious beliefs. This is not what sport is about. I love sport, and for me, that is my piece away from the chaos of politics. I don't want politics involved. I think that the Olympics is something I've always loved to watch. I think it's a fantastic event. But this year, I mean, it was just a joke. That opening ceremony was just all about trans drag queens and political statements. And I've just had enough of it, to be honest. And I think that you've got to think about the athletes here. The athletes, they just want to focus on getting their gold medal. But in order for them to do that, they rely on their sponsorships, right? And now you've got all these athletes worried, oh, if I don't go along with these political slogans, you know, if you've got Nike, Adidas, whatever, say putting out pro-trans campaigns and whatnot, but then you write on your social media, I think there are only two genders, you then lose your whole sponsorship deal. So it's very stressful for the athletes. Just let them focus on getting their medals.
There's a lot of virtue signaling here. We've seen it before with Premier League footballers wearing the old rainbow laces and then going to countries to play football.
Jordan Henderson, a classic example.
In countries which aren't very tolerant of people wearing or rainbows and people from that community, are they? So there's a bit of a hypocrisy there.
Yeah, look, I mean, I said it before, I think players wearing armbands, wearing stuff on their kit to make a political statement is wrong. Picking up Chloe's point, this isn't free will. The vast majority of them are dragooned into doing it because it's about the brand of the game. However...
What about taking the knee, though? Because I think a lot of our young footballers in this country were sort of railroaded into taking the knee before games. I do genuinely believe that, because I think if they dug a little deeper and realised what BLM was all about, they wouldn't be taking the knee.
I think there was too much crowd movement in that regard. And again, it's a political statement that I don't think players should be making or should be forced to play. However, I come back to the point, and I'll actually say to Chloe, South Africa apartheid, I supported the boycott back in the day. Would you have supported the boycott?
I'm certainly no expert on that situation and what exactly happened there with their teams and whatnot. I think when certain countries have not been allowed to play because of the way that they have managed their teams inappropriately, Russia, for example, with all the doping and everything, to say, right, your country's not allowed to compete in the Olympic Games, I think that's probably the right thing to do. I think if you start saying to countries, oh, we don't want you in the games because we don't like your politics, it then gets a bit complicated. I mean, I know it's not sport, but look at what happened at Eurovision, where the way that Israel was treated, because you had all these people saying, oh, you know, you're a genocidal state, you're not, the poor singer, she just wanted to go up and sing, but it was a pretty horrific experience for her.
Yeah. But, our football stars, Bill, earn huge amounts of money. They are role models. Young people look at them, and I think just sometimes, just go and play your sport. That's what you paid for. You go and do your best, go and win football matches, stop virtue signalling. If you want to do that in your private life, that's entirely up to you, but don't do it in a stadium where there's 30,000, 40,000 people watching you.
In general, I agree with that, but I make the point as well, I think for the vast majority of them, it's not an act of free will. They've been coerced by the clubs and the football authorities to do it. If you don't do this, you're going to be disciplined.
I guess, guys, some of these sportsmen, these footballers, whatever, would argue that they are representing people from minority groups. They're speaking out on their behalf. They're making a point for all the right reasons, rather than the so-called virtue signal, which I sometimes may say. So they may think they're doing a good thing, but I don't hear these communities very often supporting this sort of behaviour on the sports pitch.
No, because the vast majority of fans don't want this brought onto the sports pitch. But I make the point again, the vast majority of footballers, this isn't an act of free will. They've been coerced by the clubs and the authorities because of brand management.
Yeah, and I think one of the main culprits was the previous England manager, Gareth Southgate, who also sort of promoted and supported his players taking the knee before football games. And funnily enough, when we had I think it was the World Cup, I didn't see any other countries taking the knee, just us. Even America, where BLM started, they weren't taking the knee.
Yeah, see, that is definitely a case where I feel like players are basically being forced into it, right? Because there may be players who don't want to take the knee because BLM, I mean, very corrupt organisation, charity money spent on huge mansions for the people at the top. They are not just arguing against racism, they're saying that we need communism, essentially. It's capitalism's the culprit, right? Most people are against, all people I hope are against racism, but many do not agree with BLM's principles, right? But then the athletes' concerns are going to be, well, if I don't take the knee, I'm going to be called a racist. People are going to say I don't care about racism. I'm going to lose my sponsorship.
You're going to be on the front page of the newspapers the next day.
Some athletes, they may feel really passionate about certain issues, but I'd say, keep that for your private social media. Obviously, you've got free speech. Say it if you want to, but I wouldn't take advantage
and the press
when you're on the
responsibility as well. Just a few weeks ago, I got a call from a reporter saying the Labour minister's just entered Downing Street without a poppy. Are you going to comment on this? I said, well, no. Because he might have just dropped it, might have just brushed off somewhere on the underground, it's fell off. Why would he attack somebody? Even though he's a Labour minister, why would he attack somebody for that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I wear the poppy proudly, but I think often, driven by the press in the run-up to Remembrance Sunday, there's almost an element of collective bullying going on about it. And newspapers that are constantly seeking to divide rather than bring us together, I think is part of the problem as well.
Right, it's time for the yes or no quiz, guys. Bill, you've done this before.
Yeah.
Chloe, you're a bit of an expert on this. I think, who did you beat last time? Was it Stadlen?
I've never not got 5 out of 5.
Right, here we go then. So, Bill, first question to you. If there was a general election tomorrow, would Labour win?
Yes.
Chloe.
Yes.
Chloe, will Trump be a good president?
Yes.
Bill?
No.
Said that with a straight face.
I did.
Bill, is there two-tier policing in the UK?
No.
You've not been watching me this week, have you, Chloe?
Yes.
And Chloe, should the inheritance tax on farms be scrapped?
Yes.
Bill?
No.
And Bill, should ULEZ be scrapped?
No.
Yes.
Ooh, controversy. It's 5-all. I'm not going to go for a top.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Dora Carrington is not known to lots of people, and very few pieces are in public collections. So you have had a great deal of work to do to put this exhibition together.
Absolutely. It's been, next year, it will be 30 years since the last major exhibition of Carrington's work, which happened in 1995 at the Barbican Gallery. And I guess if people know Carrington's work, they might have seen the film that took place that year, that came out that year, starring Emma Thompson as Carrington and Jonathan Pryce as Lytton Strachey, who was her main kind of key relationship in her life. And that, in a way, dramatised a lot of those relationships. And so people will often know her life as much as her art. There's only 16 works in public collections. And so apart from chances such as the big billboard campaign you mentioned 10 years ago, there have been very few chances to actually see her work in the flesh. And so what this exhibition does is bring together around 80 works by Carrington and a few of her key contemporaries, providing a new generation really a chance to see and enjoy her work. She was one of the most remarkable of her generation at the Slade School of Art. She won several prizes for her drawing and her draftsmanship. And in the first room of the exhibition, we have some of the work, for example, a couple of female nudes that she painted when she was at the Slade, and they really are kind of quite outstanding.
One of the things that's been said is that in her landscapes, she's sometimes painting the human body as well as the landscape. Is that something that occurred to you? Can you stand up that?
Yes, I mean, one of her most famous paintings we have of Spain has. It's very much like you could liken it to the female form. You know, the kind of the
delicately put.
Yes.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Go on the streets and you can shout, you know, I love Hamas as much as you want, and nobody does anything about it. You've got vehicle theft rates, burglary, charge rates, have dropped dramatically. The Telegraph did the piece on this showing the stats on it, and it is just absolutely shocking since 2016 how much they've dropped. They can't find time to deal with those, but they can go after people for writing Facebook posts. We've had
that's wrong.
People gone over just for commenting on the fact that we have a horrific grooming gang problem in this country, which is factual. We have the evidence to back it up. It's just case after case of people being gone after for tiny little things. You know, pensioners having the police knocking at the door because a guy
Come on,
put
Bill,
up a
you've got to
sticker
come back on
saying,
this. I've got a few
keep men
seconds
out of
left.
ladies' changing rooms. I mean, should the police be going after that? Absolutely not.
OK, there's one thing you said there, Chloe, and it's about people shouldn't be able to say they love Hamas. Now, I abhor Hamas.
I didn't say they shouldn't be able to say it.
You said it should be policed.
No, I'm just saying that there should be. You shouldn't have double standards.
No. Sorry, I'm a passionate believer in free speech and open debate, and you cannot have double standards. You know, I abhor Hamas, and I fundamentally disagree with the people who support them, but they have the right to say it in a free democracy. And I think people who argue that free speech is important, they should support it across the board.
Right, guys, that's it. It's 5 each. I tried to slip a tiebreaker in there, but Bill was ahead of me. He must have seen last week's show. But coming up next, we've got Hollyoaks star Paul Danan. That's last orders at the bar. Thanks to the landlady, Mel, who forgot it last time, actually. Paul Danan.
How you doing, Lee?
Former Hollyoaks star.
Thank you.
Reality TV star. Celebrity Love Island.
That's it, yeah.
You went to Fiji.
Yeah,
Fiji's
man.
on my bucket list. What was it like there, mate?
I'm telling you, it was the best place I've probably ever been to. It's the furthest place you can go to from England.
Yeah.
And or Great Britain, and if you go the long way round, which I did.
Yeah, once you get there, you're coming back on yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, but you can come back through LA and then a bit quicker, but still a bit of a trip.
I would love to. How long were you?
Such nice people. I was there about 2 months.
Wow.
And then they invited me back the year after.
Yeah. So all that sudden fame, being like a celebrity on Celebrity Love Island.
Yeah.
People out on the street going to recognise you. That's going to completely change your life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, getting Hollyoaks was
life changing.
I was only 19, and then suddenly you start to see people kind of like looking at that guy, and it grows, and then I did it for 4 years, and over the years you just kind of like start to really, even other. I think for me, what was nice was other people in the industry appreciating your work.
Yeah,
that's what I like.
So you've had lots of highs.
Yeah.
In your life, in your career. Some lows as well, mate. You suffered a little bit in the past, but with addictions.
Addiction and ADHD and mental health. And, which I think, is a lot to do. It's an underlying cause of addictions. Yeah. And I never got diagnosed until I was 40. So
you think some people just have got addictive personalities?
No, there's no such thing. I thought that's what it was all about, but I've learned a lot more since being in treatment and in recovery, and just realising that actually I think that some people have more cortisol, more anxiety if you have alcoholism or addiction in you, and I also think that if you have that fear, that nervousness and that stuff going on in you, then it can be caused from trauma when you were younger, and that trauma and stuff can be part of a mental health problem. And I didn't know I had ADHD, which is where things can get overwhelming and things can be too much sometimes. And it used to be an anger illness, funny enough.
That's true, it's true.
But when you don't know that you're dealing with something, and then you're trying to help it with a stimulant, which is what calms you, and that stimulant is not good for you and becomes detrimental to your life, It's a bit of a...
But you are giving back as well, aren't you, now, for acting?
That's it. I mean, since learning all that and being able to handle all of that and being medicated, even though I'm not anymore, getting that right. And when it was all really understood in my head, and the doctor was helping me and all of that, I was able to focus on building this theatre company.
Brilliant.
Where I wanted to give back to people with mental health and addiction problems. And I thought, well, let's do some drama, let's do some role playing, let's build their confidence a bit and have fun and be a kid again and start to kind of escape in a healthy way. And I give it for free. I say I gave it because funding's run out.
Yeah.
And this is what's really tough, when suddenly there isn't enough funding for the arts or for mental health as much.
So let me ask you a question, Paul. How does that young man or that young lady who's got an addiction problem at the moment, parents are whittled to death about this young person in their family, how do they get them into rehab? What's the pathway?
Obviously, if they've got 12, 13 grand, they can get into rehab. But otherwise, there's drug and alcohol agencies that will, if they really want to, and they believe through seeing them come every week to a group, and they believe they do want it, then they will give them that chance and they will get them the funding, because they only get a certain amount of funding to put people like that into rehab, and they can't put everyone. But there is funding, it's there, but you've got to show that you really want it, and you want it for you and no one else is telling you to go.
Okay. Anyway.
We're
behind the bar, mate.
Yeah. I didn't think we were even going to get on that.
Get yourself a pint pot, young man. One of these down here, pint pot, a glass.
Okay.
And we're going to be very kind to you.
Yeah.
The old neck oil, it's an easy pull. You've got 30 seconds to pour.
I've never worked in a pub.
Well, don't make excuses, mate. Don't
Come on, listen.
Well.
Yeah, I mean...
Hey.
Right, this is...
You can plonk that on the bar.
Yeah.
So listen, reality TV.
It's all right, it's not...
We get loads of people on here that's been on reality TV shows, loads, every week.
I'm an actor, though, but I'm not a reality TV person. You know, I mean, I'll do that for a bit of cash, but that's about it.
Who was your acting hero growing up?
Robert De Niro is my favourite actor, yeah.
He's a good actor. His politics aren't very good, though, I don't think.
Why, you like Trump?
Yeah, I do like Trump.
You love Trump? I could tell you like Trump.
I would have voted for Trump.
Really?
I would have voted for... If I was an American citizen, I would have voted for him.
He's a bit of a only.
As another swear word on the show.
Sorry.
I mean, it's getting a weekly occurrence. Can we just look at his fee again, please? And just reduce that. I think it's £10.
No, I think he's the man for the job at the moment. I do, because
you got out of that one, didn't you?
No, I do, because otherwise, you know, someone's got to talk to these other tough, crazy leaders.
Yeah, you're going to swear again then, weren't you?
No.
So listen, 10 years time. How old are you now? Paul.
10 years time, I'll be like that.
You're only in your 30s.
Remember we were on that show? We were good. No, I don't say my age, but yeah, I'm young.
Young at all.
Yeah, I'm young, and in 10 years, please God, you know, I'll have my own production company, and I'll be making dramas, and I want to be part of, like.
Do you think you talked about addictions earlier on?
Yeah.
Paul. Do you think there's enough support for people in your sort of industry?
Of course not. Of course not, and that's the thing. This industry is rife with people that have ADHD and addiction issues, but also there's a lot of sobriety. There's a lot of people that are in recovery, you know, that you wouldn't believe, and some are very out with it, you know. Tom Hardy, he's quite, you know, and some don't want to talk about it, but you know, look at Anthony Hopkins. I mean, he's been in recovery for over 30 years, you know, and you know, but Richard Pryor, I mean, look at, you know, you think about the amount of people that have had problems who were the best.
Yeah.
So we've got to be a bit nuts, you know.
You must wake up one morning, you've got all this fame and fortune and stuff like that comes with being an actor. Yeah. Being on these, you know, these shows. You come a morning when you wake up and think, I've got to do something about this, or it's going to kill me.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you hate yourself. Yeah. I mean, it's the hatred towards yourself, and you just feel like, which then causes that depression.
That's a horrible thing to hate yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can't look in the mirror, and because it's full of guilt and shame. And just because you know that the only thing that's going to numb that is something to stop that pain. So in a way, you're self-medicating. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, that self-medicating will only last for 2 minutes, and then you've got all the repercussions of it. So is it worth it?
And who do you get to talk to when you're going through that?
Well, this is why it's great that there are the fellowships out there that, you know, don't promote and stuff. But you talk to friends that you know, that are your real friends, your parents, and you talk to experts. And thank God I've got great, you know, people that I've worked with, like therapists that I've worked with that have been genuine and do not just hate your money, genuinely want to help you and want to see how you're getting on. But you know, it's you want to be with people that relate, to have had their own stuff. Yeah. You know, that knows what that head's like. That's why I developed MAD, Morning After Drama, and because we're all a bit mad, you know, and it's about having those people that come that can relate to you, and we're all there and we all talk about our stuff. Then we do a bit of acting, and we actually feel like we're not alone, because the opposite to addiction is connection.
So mad.
Yeah.
Not as mad as that pint you've just pulled in.
No,
I want to give you about 3 out of 10 for that. It's absolutely rubbish, but Paul, inspiring.
Mate,
inspiring story.
You're a lovely guy, Lee.
Thanks.
Cheers.
That's
Thank
Paul
you.
Danan. Great
Thank
guy.
you, guys.
So thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. Another great show, great guest. But coming up next, we've got Friday Night Live.
Thank you, Lee. Well, let me tell you, folks, the sandwich wars continue as Nigel Farage defends his lunch option, which is a cheese and pickle sandwich, but in an extraordinary intervention. The Tory party leader, Kemi Badenoch, has blasted Nigel's choice of sandwich, and she has posted on Twitter what a bland, soggy old sandwich Farage is. So more on that shortly. Also, as it's revealed his close friend is an alleged Chinese spy, is Prince Andrew now a bigger embarrassment than Harry, Meghan and Gary Lineker combined? Also, is it too soon to write off Kemi Badenoch? What's your verdict on her performance as leader of the opposition? Also tonight, is sleeping with 1,000 men in a day an example of female empowerment? And Reform UK, a stunning election result will bring reaction.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the world headquarters of GB News, this